appreciate the opportunity to be with all of you today. And we're here today to talk for a few minutes about training to maximize our performance. And I'm not going to lie to you, this is a topic I get kind of excited about, probably because I was exposed to it really young. I was raised in kind of a large family with a father who was a Marine Corps infantry officer. Now, when I say Marine Corps infantry officer, you're probably picturing an archetype, but I need you to do me a favor. Whatever you're thinking, I need you to turn that up 2 notches past crazy, all right? And that was my dad. He didn't just drink the Kool-Aid, he used to bring home gallons of it for the rest of us. And everything was an opportunity to train, right? We were always working on our efficiency or practicing our discipline, and we didn't take Christmas morning off. There was one in particular that I remember very vividly, and the 4 of us kids were in the living room, probably in footy pajamas, doing what kids do on Christmas morning, and I looked outside the window, and snow had started to fall. Now, I made a fairly innocuous statement and said, "Oh, how pretty." And somehow what my dad heard was, what we need to do is take the entire family out for a physical fitness training opportunity on Christmas morning in the snow. That's what she's asking for. So I don't know how he talked us into it, but we're lacing up our shoes, and with the little girls are getting on their bicycles because they can't keep up and we're not slowing down. And we go outside onto the neighborhood streets. And it would have been fine, the story would have ended there, except that the pretty snow had turned to hail and sleet and that driving, icy rain. So we're running down the road and we're slipping and sliding. It's kind of turning into a debacle. The neighbors are yelling out their doors, "What are you doing? Get those kids inside." And my dad thinks, this training opportunity is not quite motivating enough. And he starts calling cadence loudly on Christmas morning, running down the street. That's Christmas in the Hendricks house. So I grew up with this really, really healthy respect for the need to train, to practice hard things so that I was ready for challenge when it came along. When I got a little bit older, I followed what had to be the unwritten 11th commandment in our household: thou shalt join the Marine Corps. So I did, and I was enthusiastic and excited about doing it, but I had a very healthy fear of what awaited me at officer candidate school. And I knew I wanted to lead Marines, and if I was going to do that, I had to throw myself at and over a couple of walls. I had to physically train to be ready. And when I became a Marine Corps military police officer and we were facing a deployment to Iraq, I knew we needed to think about our tactical training. What did we need to know to be ready for this new and untried situation? So training was important. I understood that. But I'm not here today to talk about training I learned in the Marine Corps. I'm here today to talk about what we missed, and we missed something. And I think that something is uniquely applicable to all of you in the audience today. You who stand on that wall every single day. The truth is, a lot of us walk around and we are sending Marines to Iraq and Afghanistan every year without really doing mental fitness training. And we can. I'm a behavioral health researcher these days, and I'm here to tell you the data, the research that shows us that we can bulletproof our brain with a series of fairly simple practices repeated over time. We can rewire ourselves neurologically. We can ready ourselves to grow from challenge rather than have it level us. And I'm telling you, this is going to be a game changer for the law enforcement and military communities. It's going to matter to us in terms of individual performance. It's going to matter organizationally because we can test for it and we can screen for it. And there needs to be some more research, and we're working on making some of these assessments scalable, but this is something we're going to be doing. What's interesting is that the concepts that make somebody resilient, 30% of you are lucky. You're already there. You have something called innate resilience. But yours can be refined and improved upon. The rest of us, we need to build it. And that can be done by focusing on a couple of key areas. And those are social support, self-care, and spirituality. By practicing a few simple things, we can ready ourselves to grow from challenge. And I'd like you to leave this brief period of time that we have together today curious and excited, maybe even Christmas morning excited about learning more about your own mental fitness training opportunities and going and figuring out how you can train to bulletproof your brain. So let's start with social support, social cohesion. This is really the building block, the baseline upon which a resilient person stands. And the reason for this, some of you may be well aware, but our bodies read social isolation, unhealthy relationships, alienation. Our body reads that in the exact same way as it reads physical threat. So what happens when we have a physical threat, right? Our heart speeds up, we start breathing faster, we've got blood flowing to the major muscle groups. Cortisol and adrenaline tell our bodies, get ready to face this physical threat. And we're going to turn off everything that's non-essential to handling it. You know, you don't need really well-running digestive system. You don't need an optimally functioning prefrontal cortex. The idea being who needs to do some calculus or speak French while they are facing a physical threat. You can imagine that this becomes problematic over time if you're dealing with a socially isolated situation. So I want you to think back for a moment to your awkward years. Probably for most of us, 12 and 13. For maybe you, sir, and me last week. No judgment. So I want you to think about walking into a cafeteria and you're not sure your friends are there. You're not sure that there's anybody that you can sit with. What happens to your body? Maybe you flush a little bit. Your heart speeds up, you feel anxious, your hands kind of sweat as you hold your tray. Your body, your poor little 12-year-old body goes through a full-on stress response as though you were dealing with a physical threat, simply because you thought you might not have a crew of kindreds to sit with in that cafeteria. Historically, humans have been tribal because we needed it to stay safe and eat and find work of purpose. We're not any different. So in order to bulletproof our brain, we need a socially cohesive foundation. And it's an uncomfortable truth, honestly, but you can't begin to practice mental fitness with no relationships in your life that support, challenge, affirm you, or with the wrong relationships. So I ask you a simple question. How do your people look? Once we've got that foundation, we can start talking about self-care. Now, if where your mind goes when I say self-care is going to the spa or eating paleo, you're going down the wrong track. I'm talking specifically about self-regulation, specifically about the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So when you're walking around on any given day, your brain waves are operating up at the alpha level. You're plugged into what's going on. You're ambulatory, you're talking, you're acting in the world. Your nervous system is on in the sympathetic state. That's normal, that's fine. We'd all like to, be able to do that. But our bodies weren't wired to stay on all the time. And if we're not carving space into our day to go parasympathetic, our brain waves stay up at alpha level without dropping down to something called theta state, that theta brainwave pattern. Now, in the parasympathetic state, it's not being asleep, right? Sometimes we're either on or we're asleep. This is different. This is a click, a drift. You feel it when it happens. You're aware of what's going on. You are awake, but it's a little bit dreamlike. And in this theta state, that's where rest, restoration, repair happens of your brain. So stress, yes, it has us secrete adrenaline and cortisol, but another hormone is produced by stress called DHEA. And the exciting thing about this hormone is that its entire job is to respond to a stress stimuli by telling our brain to grow, to improve its synaptic firing, to grow because of the stress stimuli. There's a catch, right? There's always a catch. DHEA only does its job in a parasympathetic state. So you are literally faced with a choice when it comes to stress. You can stay sympathetic all the time and never grow. You can let it wear and tear, and you can miss out on the growth opportunity that DHEA provides. It literally wants to bulletproof your brain. Or you can figure out how to get yourself into a self-regulated, downshifting state. Now, this is very bio-individualized, so what that feels like for you is going to be different. For me, a good yoga practice does it. A lot of people like meditation, and there are, dozens of ways to practice meditation. I have a friend who tells me that she can feel herself shift into theta state when she's swimming laps. When I'm swimming laps, I'm trying to breathe, I'm panicking, I'm trying not to drown. There is nothing parasympathetic happening for me swimming laps. So you have to experiment here a little bit. But what you're looking for is a built-in, regular, repeated opportunity for DHEA to do its job of bulletproofing your brain. And you have to carve that space for yourself. So social support is our foundation. Self-regulation, self-care is kind of exciting in terms of what we can do for our brains. What am I talking about when I say spirituality? When you bring up the fact that spirituality can have tremendous protective effect on human health, people get a little bit twitchy in their seats because humans love to weaponize faith, right? And it can feel like a potentially divisive or uncomfortable conversation. A lot of academics won't go here, but I'm a Marine, and we're not known for being the smartest. And the data are undeniable. So something called subjective religiosity. When a person reports a high level of subjective religiosity, meaning they believe something, they have rituals that go along with that belief, and they do these rituals in communion with other people, the health benefits for these people are off the charts. We talk about protective effects, and the data are both practically and statistically significant. Let's look at a really simple example, prayer. You can put someone under a functional MRI scanner and watch what happens in their brain when they pray. And the nervous system does de-escalate, just like meditation, but something else happens as well. The post-parietal lobes of your brain, off to the side, you start seeing increased activity. And this is the portion of our brain where you drop personal pronoun usage. You experience empathy. You connect with other people. You communicate well. Over time and with practice, these changes become permanent. And it really only takes about 6 to 8 weeks, research shows us. Over time, practiced regularly and practiced in concert, social support, self-care, and spiritual practice can bulletproof your brain. This is going to be something that we see in coming years. This is going to be something that we do. This is going to be something that we test and screen for. But the exciting thing about building our resilience and bulletproofing our brains isn't just that it's going to make us better warriors. It's also going to make us better parents, better partners, better friends. It's going to spill over into every area of our lives. So the way that you invest in your tactical proficiency, the way that you train physically, bring that same dedication to your mental fitness training. It can be done, it can be tested for. I encourage you to invest in your own resilience because it will help you win that battle for balance. Be brave, be strong, and be true. And bring that Christmas morning enthusiasm to the process. Thank you.